Hi, and welcome to the New Mission Career Transition Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Kaprielian. I'm joined by my co-host, sister, and HR professional, Alexandra Kaprielian. And today's guest is Joseph Kenyon. He's a retired Marine Master Sergeant and combat engineer. I served with him from 2007 to 2010. And so this is like connecting with somebody that I actually had a great time serving with, but also listening to what he's doing in the construction industry. We talk about project management. We talk about preparation for transition. We talk about so many different things. As a matter of fact, my mind's still boggled on how I'm going to be able to consolidate all of these into bullet points, but it was a great ride and I learned a lot. I think you're going to enjoy this. I know you're going to enjoy this, so stay tuned. Joseph Kenyon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Of course, we had a conversation before I started that. And now it's like just awkward. Shit. I just cursed. Oh, great.
I think you should keep it.
No, you should keep it. Now it's explicit.
Yes.
What the hell? All right. Well, hey, listen, for those of you that are listening, there's nothing like reconnecting with a formerly Staff Sergeant Joseph Kenyon while I was Captain Kaprielian, and like great staff and COICs. He found a way to keep me out of trouble and also tell me how weak I was and how I needed to run faster and harder.
That's right.
And how I'm a nasty officer and why I don't get things done on time. And what else? What am I leaving out?
I wish I was there.
That was a weird billet, but it led to good things for me, and I know for you as well. You know, I mean, we transitioned to a regiment while we were there, so we had a full bird colonel who we directly talked to. That was nice, and in the area we were in, it was nice too because we had, I think at that time, General Mattis was the general of Joint Forces Command.
Yes. So to clarify, we're talking about Security Force Regiment when it went from Marine Corps Security Force Battalion to Security Force Regiment. And CIS, we were both in the facilities section within the S4.
That's right.
And we did your re-enlistment while both of us were standing on a riding lawnmower.
Yeah, it was on. Yeah, we couldn't hear anything that you were saying. I saw your mouth move, and I just, yeah.
That was epic. I like that.
Epic. Yeah, that was, it was different because I got to go to do other things too while I was there. I didn't actually do really engineering stuff. I did more other things. That was awesome.
Yeah. A lot of like random facility stuff. I mean, you kind of like, you found a way to make just things happen. Wires dangling from your ceiling, your overhead, no problem. You figured it out.
And then when I got bored, I went and ran a transition team for a special police transition team. So that was nice.
Oh yeah. That's cool.
Yep.
Well, let's start from the beginning so the audience can get to understand who you are. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town in Massachusetts called Brimfield. We are known for our, we have a fair there, you know, so it's a flea market. It's the largest flea market, I think, in New England, if not the country. But it's not that big of a town. So it was weird. We had like 5 towns go to one high school. It's a union up there. It's all different, but people from New England would understand that.
All right, cool. And what's your Marine Corps story? How did you join? What was that like?
Both my parents were in the military. My dad was in the Army, and then my mom was in the Air Force. She was in the Air National Guard. My whole family pretty much was in the military. My grandmother was a woman Air Corps. My aunt was a woman Air Corps. Grandfather I never met was in World War I. He would launch depth charges from merchant marine ships into the water to go after the Nazi submarines. So I grew up in, you know, around the military the whole time, you know, either going to Otis Air Force Base or Fort Devens Army. I think it was an Army Air Base at that time. They had the A-10s there. So I was around the military, and then I wanted to get out of there because a lot of my family, they drank alcohol, never left, and most of my family hasn't left. They're still there. And so the Marine Corps recruiter was the first person I saw. I took the ASVAB and I put down, like they had these like sticky notes and you put down the service that you wanted to join. And my neighbor's dad was a Marine and I wanted, there were some things that came up. I won't talk about that. I had some trouble as a youth, but I was okay. I turned out to okay, but I put down Marines, and the Marine Corps recruiter, being the snakes that they are, they see that and they like look into that. So when I finished my ASVAB, he took me and asked me what I wanted to do. I honestly said I want to get the heck out of here and go to the farthest point possible. And so that led me to I had a very good score. You can't be a dummy to be an engineer, so you had to have a good score in the ASVAB. Went to engineer school. I wasn't in the top of my class, but I was up there. So I got my first pick, which was Okinawa, Japan. And that's where I went, Okinawa, Japan. So halfway around the world. It was awesome. It was exactly what they promised me. So
Yeah, you got away.
I did get away, and it was good. Yeah, I got to go do some cool things in Okinawa, Japan. And, that's where it started my career. I was in division over there. I was with the last... it was a combat assault company, CAB, and the combat assault battalion. So that was like a weird dynamic. They didn't really have that in the main side Marine Corps. Camp Lejeune, Camp Pendleton didn't have that. I think Hawaii kind of had a detachment, but not like how Okinawa was set up. So I was like the biggest battalion. We were deployed, went on the MEU immediately, and got to be around a bunch of crazy guys and learn ship life. Boy, that was different, living on a ship. So I think most Marines, if they haven't lived on a ship, they need to. They need to experience, like, you're not going anywhere. Once you're out in the middle of the ocean, you're there. So, and the nice thing is general's quarters, when that's sounded, you just go back to your berthing area and just, take your boots off. Remember that. Always take your boots off when you're jumping the rack and pass out until the Navy says it's okay for you to, come back out and do whatever. And,
that's right.
And then, then as I progressed in rank, I went to Pendleton. From Pendleton to where I met you in Norfolk. From Norfolk, I left there to go down to Lejeune, go back to becoming a real Marine again, second CEB. Met a bunch of good characters down there. From second CEB, went to I&I duty in Roanoke, Virginia, that was definitely an experience. So Bravo Company, shout out to Captain Hicks and First Sergeant Richard, my two good friends of mine. And I think Drew Hicks. He was probably a major still. If not, he got out. But he was definitely one rank less than you.
Sounds familiar. You probably crossed paths at some point in time.
Yeah, I guarantee you have. And then he left I&I duty and went to where I retired, which was Syscom, which was an old different beast and an animal, which was really good. I will say this, if any Marine gets a chance to, going to Syscom will open up your eyes to the way funding happens, the way gear happens. You can have a best laid plan, it's true, and then all of a sudden it gets scrapped. So you can have a priority thing that needs to be funded, and then it doesn't get funded at all, and then you're left with the money. Now, what do you do with it? And you have to be quick. And knowing the battalion commanders, knowing him from being like you were like at that time, I think we're major picking up lieutenant colonel. It's like I know these guys. I knew them when they were lieutenants. I knew Pete Siaston when he was a butter bar, and now look where he's at. So it's like I got to know him at CD&I as a major. So it's like you carry that. If you're worth a damn and you keep friendships, you have the right ability to know these people. So it's great, and then you can find funding or find things for that funding. So that was a good experience for me, which then led me to, where I'm at now. So I've kind of been, I've had the weirdest Marine Corps career. I've been blessed with everything. When I say that, as like I never got passed over. I was always, if I didn't knock out a 300 PFT, I strived for it. I never wanted to be in the rear. I wanted to always lead from the front. I think I did that. Most people that know me, I'm a very loud person.
No,
not at all.
No, you're a cuddly teddy bear. What are you talking about?
All right, just don't tell anybody though. All right, but I had great leaders. I had great leaders that helped me with that. So yourself included. So like I had good people. I've been blessed with good people. I haven't had I've had one platoon sergeant. We won't talk about him. And, but I'll rank him now, so it doesn't really matter. But I've been very blessed with the people that I've had in my Marine Corps career that either were my mentors or guided me in the right way. You know, going through a marriage, going through a divorce. I mean, good people to help me. I'm not saying they're all perfect. Don't get me wrong, but you can learn from their mistakes. Don't do what they're doing, and that will definitely keep you. And I'd say there's a higher power that if you channel your energy towards, it'll keep you centered and keep you going in the straight line.
Well, thank you for saying that. I think that's true. And I think a lot of people sometimes hesitate to say things like that. Not that we haven't had guests on the show that are open and transparent, but yeah, that's something to live by, right?
That's absolutely it. And I am here because of that, because I've lived through things that some people haven't lived through, or experiences that some people haven't had, and I'm very blessed, I will say that, to have that center and keep me going.
Yeah, we served in a shore billet, the Navy would call, or a non-deployable billet. But I'd imagine you're kind of like a bullet chaser.
Yes.
You always want to be in front, and I always respected that about you. So, yeah, I think you definitely earned the good reputation that you have in the Marine Corps and within our engineer community. Yeah. So you said your last duty station was Marine Corps Systems Command. So talk to me a little bit about your transition. Like, what was that trigger that made you want to leave? Was it something that, I've heard a lot of people say, when it's your time, it's your time.
It's 100% correct. The grass is greener on the other side. I was in a billet that I was a master sergeant, but there was master guns, staff sergeants, lieutenant colonels. We were all doing the same thing. It didn't matter what your rank were, right? At SysCom, it's like being at the Pentagon. A lieutenant colonel, they're everywhere. Majors are everywhere. Captains are everywhere. Master sergeants, we're a dime a dozen. So I was doing the same job as a lieutenant colonel, as a master guns, and I was like, well, what? Okay, so if I get promoted, which more than likely I would have, I get more pay. That's great, but I'm doing the same thing. Like, that's not a challenge to me. That's boring for one. And then we had just, the people I was working with, there was an individual that really pushed me away from the Marine Corps. So I was eligible. Well, actually, I was already over 20 years. I just dropped my paperwork, and my current boss, my current employer, who is a reserve major engineer officer, had just started his company, and I'd been talking to Paul for quite a while. So I've known him. Well, now I've known him for a decade, but I knew him in 2014, and he was the kind of guy who always wanted to have his own company in construction. And so when I was retiring, he's not too far from me, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you come up here?" So we started talking. He's like, "Hey, when you retire, I need a guy to help." At that point, it was only three of us to help run the company, get operations going, and all that. And I said, "Absolutely." So I didn't really have a stop. So I literally, I kid you not, I think everybody can relate to this. I was skipping into IPAC. I literally skipped from the parking lot into IPAC. I was the happiest could be. I'm in civilian attire. I don't have to dress up. I got my paperwork, and walk back to my truck. And if everybody does this, they read their DD-214. Okay. And you read it and you're like, wow, this is cool. This is cool. And at the bottom, it says, thank you for your service. You are now, I can't remember the exact words, but anybody that's read it knows. And that literally, that makes you cheer up, because you just did over 20 years of, and now it's like, what do we do? And then, no kidding, on cue, Tim Behrens, retired master sergeant engineer, calls me up and he's like, "Hey man, I'm just thinking about you." And I was like, "Well, that's kind of funny. I'm reading my DD-214." And he's like, "Why don't you come over for a drink?" And so I went over to his house, have a drink, and Paul calls me, and I already knew I was going to work for him. Paul calls me. He's like, "Hey, no, this is your last day in the Marine Corps," and I was on terminal. He's like, "Hey, I can't wait to see you tomorrow." And like literally changed. Like I didn't have. It wasn't a choice of, oh, what am I going to do? I knew I was going to do. So it was nice, and I think that having that friendships, having those people that you stay connected with, you have to like don't burn bridges you don't need to burn. Even if you didn't like the guy completely, people change, people mature, environment changes, and then as you get older, a lot of the same roads that you were going down may have been parallel to each other, but now they're crossing, and you get to know those people even more than you got to know them while you were in. And that's very crucial. It doesn't matter what service you are. A good friend of mine that I served with in Battle of Marja, he was an Army officer. He lives not too far from here either, and I still stay connected with him, and we're still good friends. And a lot of those guys, as we get higher in the ranks, you stay with their friends. Just like we haven't got the chance to talk as much as we normally do, but we did stay connected. Especially through LinkedIn. I think that's a great platform to do that and talk to these people that we know. And then it also helps out that we can help others out find jobs or know people. Like I can call certain individuals like, "Hey, you need help," or whatnot. Like, got you. I can help. I can link you up with somebody. So not just LinkedIn, but LinkedIn helps. That's a platform to help everybody get together, but like keeping those relationships going. Because I remember I saw my old PFM in Home Depot, and he was a GS, and he was just like, "Hey, I know that you've been retired for a little bit. You think about working for the government?" And I kindly said no, and he's a great guy. I don't want to work because one thing I feared working for the government if I worked as a civilian was I'd have to go to the bottom of the totem pole again. As a Marine, I'm just going to say this as a Marine, I worked from private to master. Like just like you work from lieutenant colonel. That's a process. It's not just like, it's not handed to you. And I didn't want to do that as a civilian because I knew a lot of my friends had gotten out and then had joined the civil service, which is nothing wrong with that, but then had to like reestablish themselves. Like, why do I have to reestablish just because I took the uniform off? I'm still the same person. I think anybody that knows me, even though I have a beard now and I'm a retiree, I'm the same person. You put me back in uniform again, I haven't changed one bit. And there's good and bad things about that, but in my line of business in construction now, it's not that bad, so it's okay. Now,
Your boss is a Marine.
Yeah, my boss is a Marine. That's correct.
There you
go. And I'm surrounded by good people here, so it's I am an HR risk. I like to say that's what we call me.
Went from libo risk to HR risk.
That's right. But I, thankfully, through being an instructor as an engineer and teaching our MOS and having to talk to Marines, I can transition that piece to talking to clients. I'm not just some young 20-year-old. I'm in my 40s now. I have a life experience. That's also something that helps. And when the different varieties of backgrounds that we have in our company, like my boss's dad, who's actually still here, he comes with amount of experience that he has in construction, especially commercial side, and all that just helps build our company and keeps our portfolio going. And it keeps me in check too, because there's some things I don't know. I can bounce it off of him and he can give me a reality check. I'm good with that. I need that. And there's nothing wrong with it. So with that being said, a game plan for transitioning, I think it's just knowing what you want to do. I did not want a desk job. I lived in Cubicle Central at Syscom. I wanted to, they knew when I was getting frustrated because I banged my head against the side of the cubicle, like hard. They knew that I was getting frustrated or something. So I didn't want a desk job. I wanted something that I could be outside. It didn't matter what the season was, and construction was a great fit for me. I'm an engineer, so I've played in the mud. I've played in whatever environment there was. I've been in it. So construction was a good fit for me. It keeps me busy. sense of purpose is the other thing. Lots of people don't know if they need to find their sense of purpose. So some guys get out, they retire, and they're fine with that. They can do that. And some people, like I know a couple guys, they retired, their wives basically retired, set up their retirement plan, and they're just traveling the country. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great. I want to do that eventually, but I feel like my purpose is to keep going. I still have 2 little kids in school, so my 2 oldest are now adults, and I still have 2 little ones. So kids aren't cheap, so I got to keep supporting them, which is fine. I made them, so I have to support them. And it's funny because I call it the light load. My boss, he's one of 9, and his wife is one of 12. So when I come into it, I'm like the small family, of only having 4 kids. But it's good. And I think funny thing about that is that my oldest son, he joined the Coast Guard, which is a great service. Don't get me wrong. But he's doing good things in it. It's different. If he had joined the Army and Navy, he'd probably gotten some grief, but he joined the Coast Guard. It's completely, that's not my realm, but he's enjoying it. He's going to be law enforcement and Coast Guard, and now he's stationed in Newport, Rhode Island, which is probably the most beautiful naval base there is. It's pretty, that's his first duty station. What a terrible life. And then my other son, my second son, in college is playing college football, so it was great. Just the good things are happening. So I think that time away from the family, that's hard, but if you stay with it, I coached them in football when I was in Lejeune. Have a purpose. I think that's what for me, it was having a purpose, and you see in my kids that they're doing good things. So
that's great. It sounds like, and you said the grass is greener.
The grass is way greener on the other side. Trust me, it is. And the responsibilities are still there. So don't tell. I say that to say this: the responsibilities change, but they're still the same. You're still in charge of something. If you're going to be at a company, you still have to keep yourself responsible for your own self. And then if you have people under you, you have to be responsible for them. And I know for my boss, being that Marine and being that business owner, I know he has some sleepless nights. It's a responsibility. You're responsible not only for yourself or his family, his wife and kids, but you're also responsible for the people that, you're giving a paycheck to. And I know he doesn't take that lightly. That's a stressful job, and I get it. But sense of purpose is key for that, and I'm grateful to be part of that, to help them out. And our company's grown. We started with 4 people. Let me correct myself: 4 people, and now we have a lot. A lot is less than 20, but that's a lot for a small company. Within the past, you started in 2019. In 2021, when I retired, it was 4, and then 2023, we've got a good handful of people that work in the company. We have 2 locations, and we're doing well, I think, because it's about the people. It's not just, I was a Marine, I wear a Marine hat, but at the end of the day, I'm still Joe, and I feel that my clients still have, they still have a budget, and they have their own family. One family that we're working with now, they got 3 young girls. And I tell the client, the husband, I was like, I don't know how you do it. I only have 1 girl, and she runs me ragged. And he's got 3 of them. So I'm just like,
you don't know how comforting it is to hear that. I've got 1 girl, and she's amazing. But yeah.
Well, my 3 boys don't even compare to my 1 girl.
Yeah. Well, you got a lot on your plate, brother. You got a lot on your plate. Hey, we talked about, your company generally speaking. So tell me, what are you doing now? What's your job description? What's your build description?
I'm a project manager. So I run a certain amount of projects, and then we have another project manager that runs another certain amount of projects. And then we have our commercial side, and then we have so I run project management, but we have a design team. We have a sales team, estimation team, so we have all that, but I run projects. So it can be from a simple bathroom to a full build. And it just depends on, what project I'm going to get. So I've done full remodels down to your basic bathroom. We do a lot of kitchens. We used to do a lot of decks. That isn't really happening as much, but we're hopefully getting into, and a lot of ADUs. A lot of clients now are doing the ADU, so they're either building it for their parents to live on the property and have their own space instead of them living in the house. They can live in their own additional dwelling unit.
Thank you.
In the back. Yeah.
Is that ADU? I should know this.
Yeah.
No,
So,
that's great. This is interesting because I'd like to know kind of the anatomy of how the company works. We're going to operate off of the presumption that most companies work like that, even if that's not true. But so you have an engineering background in the military, you go into construction, and you're a project manager.
mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that at some point in time, what happens is you have a sales department that sells a service. They go out and they do the estimation.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get a commitment for that sale and they go through the paperwork, does it come to you then as the project manager?
Yes.
Or like, okay, so there's a sales part, then it comes to you and you manage the resourcing and the execution, or generally speaking, oversee the execution, the planning and execution of the project. Is that accurate?
Right. So we have a sales, and then if they sell the design, we have a design agreement, and then if they still proceed and they want it, because we do designs all the time, and they may not go with the construction agreement. Once the construction agreement is signed, it comes to me, and I'm running it, from birth to death. So from once they sign them on site, we'll do a pre-construction, we'll do a site with a site survey with the clients, let them know like, hey, this is what's going to happen. Especially like a kitchen. I'll tell you this, the number one thing that definitely stresses people out is doing the kitchen. Because when you lose your kitchen, you have no place to cook. A lot of people, that's, you're losing a refrigerator. We got to move stuff for you. We've had clients move out to a whole new house. They rented a house for 3 to 4 months just so they could have that ability. And that, like a kitchen in a master bedroom, that stresses a lot of people. Also, we talk to them ahead of time, we know these concerns. And so if there's anything else, just let us know. But yes, from I call it from birth to death. So just like in Syscom, we start a program to the death of the program. And I was at the death of some programs like bridging and all these other programs that the Commandant of the Marine Corps, like literally overnight said, we're getting rid of this, and this. And it's like, oh, great. Now we have to kill a program. And we had to, from birth to death. And there is death certificates for items in the military. So you have a birth certificate and you have a death certificate. And that is a true statement. So it worked out good, especially for me, learning Syscom, learning acquisitions, learning the meat and potatoes of how things are ran, running a program. And then the Marine Corps sent me and paid for me to run project management programs like Microsoft Office and Microsoft Pro, and in learning those and learning how to do deadlines, baselines, tasks, subtasks, successors, and working not just with one program, but several programs together to make a program to work. Because it's not just one program. Sometimes you have several programs in the mix that have to get to certain baselines, and that deadline has to be met. Critical path, like things we learn as an engineer, like the critical path. Well, if the critical path changes, how does it affect you? And already having a plan to effectively keep engaging the program, especially if you lose funding. And I've had that happen when I was there. We lost funding, and how do I do that? Well, I have a choice. Come up with being aggressive is not a bad thing, because then you try to be proactive in learning stuff, and you hunt people down for money. That's exactly how it works. Like, hey, I've heard you got some money that you can't get rid of. I'd gladly take that from you. And, it happens all the time.
So here's another question. So in your line of work, in being the PM for construction projects, what are the hardest variables to account for or control?
If you're digging in the ground, finding stuff that's the unknown. If you're pulling stuff off a house that's definitely built, we've worked on houses that are built in the early 1900s. The variables of the unknown, electrical, safety structure. You pull off a wall and you go, okay, well, I thought that wall was had studs in it. It doesn't have studs. So now you have to, come up with a new plan, talk to the designer, talk to the engineer, talk to inspectors, because lots of inspectors, people are weary of them. They're not that bad. They'll try to help you out. You make good friends with them and you try to, get everything done right. But the variables are the unknowns. Like you walk into a house and it looks great, but we were in a house that's built in the 80s, very nice neighborhood. And the house is not built right. We found so many things wrong with it, and it's hard to tell the clients. Yeah, we're doing O'Brien's. Shout out to O'Brien's in Warrenton, Virginia. It's an Irish pub, and then upstairs we're doing apartment buildings. And the unknowns were, we had Pat. He came on to us. That's Paul's dad. He worked construction, I think, 40 years now plus. He's an old man. Don't let him fool you. He's old. And we ripped up the floors, and it was unforeseen. And it's an expensive project. And when you rip up the flooring off an old building that still has, concrete subfloor, and it literally crumbles in front of you, you're talking about, I have to go to an engineer. I have to figure out, hey, how much more concrete can I pour on this? Is it going to be suitable for me to actually build on? So there's a lot of things that the variables, especially safety wise, structure is our biggest concern. Is that can we support it? The people wonder why we have to dig down so far on certain projects. We did a footer for an ADU, and normally in Virginia you dig down 2 feet and then a little bit and one more foot for the footer, so the footer itself is no higher than 2 feet from the top of the ground. And you have to dig down to hard soil. We kept on finding loose soil. We had to dig down like 7 feet. So the footer cost us triple the amount of what we saw. And so the variable that comes in, and you have to go back to the client. Like, listen, I can't do this for free. So everything is my time's cost something. It costs more money for foundation. It costs more money for permitting, because now we have to redesign the drawings. So there's those variables, and every job is different. Like you can say, oh yeah, I've done 14 kitchens. Every one of those kitchens is different. So it does not matter. Every builder is different. So you have to deal with unfortunate circumstances, or like another thing is time. Like certain clients, like you can only work between this time and this time. That's it. That's all you get. And you can't work weekends. And in construction, weekends and Saturdays, we do a lot of work on Saturdays. And I can't work on a Saturday. That holds us up. And then they say, hey, why is this project taking so long? Well, you only gave me a 6-hour window to work, and then you don't let me work the weekend. So instead of a 40-hour work week, I'm not getting it.
Yeah, and that's expensive, because like not too many people are going to work 6 hours a day.
No, we have to, if we hire a subcontractor, he's going to bill me for a full day. He's going to try to.
Because he has labor costs that he has to worry about.
Right. Labor cost, insurance, like all that comes into it. Like a lot of people don't understand, like our company has to take out an insurance policy on that project in case something happens. So that's another reason why people get a little turned away from projects, because they see the price. Well, we're not the cheapest, but we're not the most expensive. We're right in the middle. We're fair. I think we price things very aggressively. And you're right. Labor isn't cheap, especially manual labor. It's a lost thing. There's people that always say they want to do it, and then they actually do it, and they can't handle it. You can't swing a hammer for all day. Oh, well, then I'm pretty sure that construction's not your job.
You say all this, and I think there are some people out there that might be like, that sounds like a type of occupation and a set of problems that I want to deal with. And then you get other people that probably hear what you're saying. It's like, wait a second. So I get to handle numerous problems, and no one problem set is the same as the other. And I've got obstacles in my way, and I either need to find a way to bypass them or breach them. And it's a very dynamic environment, so I'm never going to end up being bored. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that would listen to this and say, like, Yeah, but you know what? That actually sounds a lot more exciting than the cubicle I'm working in, because I've been in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard. I've been doing this for so long, and that's kind of the genesis. Like you get up to the ranks and now you're in a cubicle. So let me ask you this, Joe. If somebody wanted to follow in your footsteps and they're like 6 months to a year still out from transitioning, and they wanted to be a program manager or a project manager in the construction industry, what would you recommend that they do?
I would recommend them do the skill bridge program. So go to the PMP. I don't know if University of Syracuse had a it wasn't easy, but it wasn't hard. A very good PMP qualification that they can take. And if they do the skill bridge program, they can do 6 months and actually intern at a construction site or oil refinery. I knew a guy as an engineer. He went and worked for Halliburton in Oklahoma, and he started running trucks, and then he worked to running a rig. So there's the skill bridge program is very key to a good success of transition. If they haven't officially picked what they want, I kind of knew what I wanted, and I was blessed with being able to go right into it. And I love challenge. Challenge is good. Chaos is my love language, as I like to say.
It's a good call sign too.
The program is great, and I think that's an underutilized program throughout, the services. And I'm glad to see on LinkedIn people using SkillBridge program for either IT, for photography. I don't care what it is that you can use it for. Like a friend of mine that owns a ranch in Wyoming, he did the SkillBridge program to work on a ranch so he could own his own ranch. So it was a shout out to Silver Mustang Ranch in Wyoming, Tony and Winnie Molnar making it happen out there. But the SkillBridge program can be used for so many things that I don't think people really understand what it's used for. You're still an active duty Marine or active duty service member, and then you do that for 6 months, and then you can transition out, and it's pretty flawless. If you use the program the right way, it's pretty flawless. But for me, it would be PMP or within Syscom. You ran a program, you understand how to use an IMS system or a CRM process. Understanding that process is absolutely key. And even the Marine Corps side, the military side teaches you the golden rule. Well, if you take everything they gave you, it works.
No, that's great. That's all great information. So I'll make sure, and thank you for the shout out. So Syracuse University's Onward Opportunity Program, they have a different name. There's like a name of a sponsor for the program, but I'll make sure I share it in the notes. It's funny you mentioned that too, because I'm probably going to apply to that program to get my PMP. I need to get some refresher for the 36 hours of training, and I've kind of tabled that because I'm working on finishing my Lean Six Sigma Black Belt certification, because that stuff's actually, I mean, that I don't know, it's something that I find interesting. And then thank you for the shout out for the Skill Bridge program. I know that, and I don't know, you retired what year?
21.
21. So since then, a lot of these services have kind of tightened up on the availability of the Skill Bridge program, especially for those that are higher in the enlisted and officer ranks, because predominantly it was for junior enlisted. I'd also want to say that there are other alternatives out there if you don't have access to the Skill Bridge program because of your duty assignment and the type of command you're in. There are Project Management Institute chapters across the area, which are great networking opportunities. Get yourself a mentor that's already in the construction industry. Go spam the crap out of Joe on LinkedIn and ask him questions, because he's a sucker and he just made his name known to all of you that are listening. But get yourself a mentor. I mean, I say this because I don't disagree with you at all. I think SkillBridge program is great if you're in the time and the place and the type of environment where it works out for you. But if it doesn't, there are other alternatives. It might just require a little bit of hustle.
100%. So, and then other thing I'd say this is, have all your bills paid before you retire or you get out. Okay, because that wonderful paycheck that we get every 2 weeks, that sometimes doesn't happen, so easily. And having that, like, I'm a firm believer in the Dave Ramsey program. I think that's a good program. It's not the best program. Okay. I'm not saying it's the best, but it's a good guideline to live by. I don't like to be a slave to the lender. So remember that. And that's a very, bad thing to be is a slave to a lender and having to have that hold over your head.
Yeah,
Mm.
I've read Dave Ramsey's stuff. He's very strict on credit, but if you adopt the philosophy behind what it is that he's saying, yeah, I mean that's a great way to run your financial life, your
Right.
financial dimension of one's life. So, man, nobody's called that out. That's great. I'm going to put that in the episode notes.
Yeah. And when you retire, you get that single paycheck, at the beginning of the month. So you get your retirement. If you rate disability, that's one paycheck at the beginning of the month. That's it. So I'm just saying, it's good to have a plan. Plans work, processes work. They're boring. It's people say, meal prepping is terrible, but it works.
Yeah.
You have to be able to do that. So my shout out to you, Chris, is that, make sure your bills are paid and, you realize that you're going to get paid once unless you have another job.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I just got my AC units replaced with heat pumps, and
Oh yeah.
I'm in the sprint right now to pay it off. I had great service. Uh, Norfolk Heating and Air, shout out to them. They did a great job. It was great customer service. I got a bill to pay. I'm trying to get
Yeah.
it done before my terminal date.
Yep.
Hey, you shared like a lot of amazing tidbits. Sis, do you have any questions?
No, it's just you're a man at my own heart, because when you talk about processes and procedures and making sure you have it in line, it is very important. And I think a lot of people skip that step. They just are so focused on what they need to do in order to retire, and then what they need to do in order to get another job, if that's what they're seeking to do. And it's that in between that we consistently forget about, until we're actually in it. And then it's all hands on deck of trying to figure out what the next step is in the immediate, instead of
Right.
just what we're going to do in the future. So it's a good call out.
Yeah. And for me, I couldn't have a break. I went right into, like I said, I grabbed my DD-214 that day. I had a day off. The next day I was working for Paul, and nothing but amazing things so far. I love this company. It takes work and dedication. Like after this, I have to go make sure a project's closed up, and I might, have dinner there. I don't know. It's an Irish pub there, so it's you can't go upstairs and not smell amazing food and not want to go downstairs. But we work long hours, but the company realizes that their free time, their personal time off is crucial. So if somebody's on their time off, we try not to bother them, because having a good team and keeping them on your team, that's one of the hard struggles is if you have your own company, is keeping people there. And I love this company. I stay here because of Paul. I am eventually going to move on. I would love to move out to a ranch, the ranch life, and that I'm built like that. That's just, I'm weird, I guess, but I love that stuff. But back to the processes, everything doesn't have to be the most complicated process. It's just having the end state. I love using the Marine Corps knowledge. End state. Hey, have your intent, have your end state, because it will keep you guided and keep you centered to do what you need to do. You will be more effective that way if you can, ride that line and do that. It doesn't mean you're going to stay on it all the time. You're going to go left, you're going to go right, and you're going to go up and down. But processes are key. They're, and I think the military, they make us into machines, but it's a good machine. I say this a lot, and I jokingly say it, but I mean it as well. It's like I do believe we're better than normal people because we've been challenged, and when you're challenged, you become better. You fail, you have to fail. We've all failed, and you keep on building yourself. I didn't become a leader by getting everything right. I had my mentors going, yeah, I don't want to do that. That's probably what I want to do. And then, you get brought into the office and you have that, the two forms of counseling, the one where you don't get to talk. You just sit there and stare straight at the person in front of you. I've had that happen to me. So informal and formal counselings are key. And we do not counselings, but performance evaluations at the company. So Paul has adopted good measures to keep this company going, and he wants the best out of everybody here.
Oh, that's great. And awesome. You gave so much good information here. I don't know. You have any saved rounds or alibis for final thoughts for those that are preparing for their own transition?
And also have time to see the things that you want to see, whether that's travel or like one of my goals that I set for myself is to go visit all the smallest towns in each state. And I want to see that. You defend this country, you want to go see it. I mean, it may not be the prettiest. Like in the one town in Wyoming is Emblem. It's got like a population of 10. So you go through it, you just drive right through it, and those places. Go enjoy the life that you gave up so selfishly or unselfishly, I guess you would say, to go see it, and then don't ruin those relationships, because now I think look back, I think I have a friend in like every state. So if I want to just go visit, it's nice having those connections. And like I said, people grow up. So when you had a bad relationship with somebody, when like I was a lance corporal with a certain individual, we're in our 40s now. So he's grown up. He's gone through trials and tribulations. Everybody does, and I think that's key. And then people that are senior to you do have to look up to them, because you got to learn from them, learn from their mistakes, and enjoy some of their mistakes, because sometimes their mistakes, they make you, that's a good laugh, so you have to be able to see the reality of things. I'm a realist. If it's, I'm from it's like from Missouri, show me how it's not good. Okay, that's not good. Yes.
Well, it's glad to know. I'm glad to know that I was a little bit of your comic relief there, Joe. I appreciate that.
Hey, when you get that, that young captain, it's all good. It's fine.
You wore my ass out.
Yeah.
We did long run, swim, run. There's a lot of that.
That's right.
There's a lot of that. Joe, our time's come up, but listen, I want to thank you very much for coming on. I look forward to actually doing the post-production on this, because it's really going to be able to give me a chance to listen to this a second time, try and take all this information you gave us and put it in the episode notes for those of you that are listening. If you're trying to keep track of like all this great information, take a look at the episode notes. Hey, thank you so much for your time. It was great seeing you. By the way, Greg Simpson gives you a shout out. He wanted to say hi. He's probably listening to this. We love our engineer godfather. I think it's fair to say that. Yeah, that's about it, brother.
All right.
Thank you much, and we'll all be in touch.
Absolutely. You guys are very welcome. It was good to do this.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
And Joe Kenyon has left the virtual studio. I'll tell you what, there's something so like fun about reconnecting with somebody that you served with in the past. And man, he is like you, as you probably noticed, sis, this man is a ball of fire.
Yeah.
He is like, when you think of Marine, when I think of what Marine, I think he is like the gung-ho of gung-ho Marines. 100%. It was great having him on. Also talking about like the construction industry, and going into the details there. But what were your thoughts and reflections?
I mean, it's just great to hear somebody find something that is just so in tune to who he is. And I think that gives a lot of people hope, knowing that you can find what you are really good at while you're in service, what you can do outside of it. And he's just a great example of finding something that was a good transition to which he felt so comfortable doing, and with people that he really cares about in a world that he knows very well. So I think this is just another good example of letting people know that it's actually possible.
Wow. Yeah. I think that's spot on. I think this is also something that my takeaway from this conversation. Joe and I worked together from 2007 to 2010. 2007 to 2010. So the last time I was actually working with him was 14 years ago. And I can tell you right now that if I were an employer or I was working for an employer and we had an open position and somebody was like, hey, we need somebody that's like got a lot of energy, likes to be out in the field, likes to get their hands dirty, but has also got great leadership and, you know, he can cut through BS. Like, I'd be like, oh yeah, I know a guy, Joe Kenyon. Like, and think about it. And so he's gone through his career in the Marine Corps where everybody that he's interacted with has come away with the same impression. And what this tells me is that since day one, he has been growing his network. Mm-hmm. And so my lesson learned is sometimes we're told to network when we get in preparation for transition, like get on LinkedIn, get networking with people in the industry that you want to go to and maybe the type of job that you want to be doing and start making connections and have those informational interviews so that you can learn and understand what it is that you're looking and refute, you know, or verify or refute whether or not that is a job that you want to be doing. I don't know if I'm using that word correctly. Anyway, so, but you get what I'm saying, right?
It works.
But the one thing that narrative doesn't address is, guess what? You actually have a network. You've got connections. Hopefully you do. You've got connections with people that have already transitioned out of the military before you did, or in Joe's case, they're a reservist, which means that they've got one foot in uniform and half of themselves in the uniform. The other half, they're actually like a business owner. And so he's been growing this network. So to me, the takeaway is the network that I developed while I was still wearing the uniform, that's still valuable. And so why not go to people like Joe? Why not go to other people that I know and I've served with that are in an industry and they're out there crushing it? And maybe, just maybe, one of those individuals of the many that I've served with have a vacant job position within their own department or their own company. So I think the takeaway is never discount the network that you already have, whether they are somebody that you served with in uniform or whether they're your sister who also does a podcast, or they're a family member or of a cousin or an aunt or an uncle, because every single one of those individuals might be working in a place that has a vacant position that is attuned to exactly who you are, what you're good at, and the place where you want to be in the future. So that was my takeaway. And I don't know, maybe you're listening to this, maybe you got a different takeaway. So many great points from Joe, and I really appreciate him coming on. And if you're still listening to me, run my suck, bob my gums, jack my jaw, hey, thank you. Thank you for listening. And if you haven't already, I'd ask you for one more favor. Please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or go into Spotify and give us a good podcast. Ask a question. Hit us up. We're on Instagram. You can hit myself or Sis up on LinkedIn. Tell us what you think. Tell us what we could be doing better. Tell us who we should be interviewing next. I'm always down for hearing somebody else's transition story. And I know there are a lot of people out there that are always listening to the next transition story that maybe that's the one that they want to follow. So until next time, stay focused.